Hi, Phil Aston here from Now Spinning Magazine with another episode of Music Biz Chat. I said a couple of weeks ago that I'd give an update once I had some quarter one figures through for the UK's music market, especially looking at vinyl and CD sales, and also probably touch on what the overall sales were like in 2024. And I've recently done a couple of videos on this subject and thinking about Generation Z and how more young people are buying physical music. So I just wanted to go into, I'm not going to bring anything up on screen on this one because it's only going to be a short video, but I thought it was very interesting anyway. So Music Week, which is the music biz trade magazine in the UK, have said that physical music sales have surged in quarter one in 2025. And the results come ahead of Record Store Day, which has traditionally delivered a boost in the physical music sales market. Sam Fender, who's the Record Store Day UK ambassador, has had the biggest selling physical album release so far this year with over 105,000 copies, which got him to number one. In context, Stephen Wilson recently got to number 3 in the UK album charts, and that was 17,500. I'm going to be reviewing Stephen's album very, very soon. Also, artists that don't get featured on this channel, but nevertheless, the reason why I'm telling you this, like people like Sabrina Carpenter's album was 196,000 copies, physical album copies. The reason why I think it's important is that my interest in doing this isn't just about my love of physical music. It's wonderful to see that, my two sons and young people, when I go into a record shop now, it's the shift away from kind of an older demographic browsing through the records or CDs is now shifting, and there's more and more young people buying physical albums, whether it is on CD or vinyl. Vinyl continues to be the star of 2025 as it was in 2024. So in quarter one, 2025, there's been an increase in consumption of 15.5% to 1,702,360 vinyl albums have been sold already in the first quarter of this year in the UK. That's an improvement on the 11.5% growth from the first quarter of last year. CD has only slightly dropped, which I'll come on to in a minute. So if we look at the 4 years figures of 2024 showed that vinyl unit sales increased by 9.1% to 6.7 million vinyl albums were sold. That's the 17th consecutive year of growth, basically coinciding with the launch of Record Store Day in 2007. CD sales were down slightly year on year by 1.4%. I think in 2024, they went down by something like 2%. So we still haven't quite leveled off. However, when we combine this, with vinyl sales, we've got the first rise of physical sales overall for the first time in 2 decades. Oh, and I've got to mention cassettes. Where are they? Cassette sales are up 205%. But that only equates to 63,000 units. So it says here it's a bit niche. I don't even know anyone who's got a cassette player, who's bought a young person who's bought a cassette player, to be honest. Interesting. Streaming has also slowed down, which they're making a fuss about, saying that it's slowed down, but it still went up by 6%, 6.6% to be honest. So it's hard. It's not really an overall slide. And to give you an indication of how catalogue is still important, the best of Fleetwood Mac sold 80,500 physical copies in the first quarter of this year. Because as I mentioned in previous episode, that I think one of the great things about being a music fan now is, especially if you're a young person getting into stuff, is that everything is available and it's just music. the way the algorithms on streaming suggest things to you, it doesn't say, oh, this is an album from 25 years ago, or it's an album 50 years ago, or 8 years ago. It's just music. So if you're listening to something and it will suggest Fleetwood Mac next or Kate Bush next, it's just music. And I think that's a great thing. So a lot of young people are buying classic albums, and they like to buy them secondhand as well. Vinyl is still very expensive. I popped into H&V yesterday, and they had a mega sale on, but the mega sale were like the original prices were way off, really. An album for 50 quid has come down to 35. And I still, as I've said before, don't understand why the same record label can put out a single album in a single sleeve can be £27.95, or it can be £35.95, or a double album might be 35, or it might be 45, or it might be 55. I don't understand that, and I think that is something that needs to be sorted out. I've said before, from my vintage buying records, if I bought a single album, it would be the same price across any record label or any shop. And the same with the double album. There were standardized prices, unless it was an import in the import racks from Virgin or something. But basically, they were always the same price, so you knew where you were. Whereas going into H&V, I don't understand why an album that's basically just an album can have such a differential in price. I don't know, how was a comment? It'd be like going to buy. No, I'm trying to think of something that's similar. I can't really. If I said it was fish and chips in the UK, if you went to get fish and chips and it was £12, and then someone else was selling fish and chips for £25, and someone else was selling it for 10, and someone else was selling it for 30, it wouldn't make any sense, would it? Because it's still the same thing. So a vinyl album, to me, if you want to keep people focused on supporting physical music, I do feel that prices should be fairly standardized. So I think I said last time, an average price of vinyl album was about £27. But it's not, is it? Because some are really lower. You'll get some on Amazon for £12, 15, 20, 40. Doesn't. So I think that is something that needs to be addressed. But I think it's great news that vinyl sales are increasing. I also think, because I'm a huge fan of CDs, and I said last time on my Music Biz Chat series that I'm buying more CDs now than I have done for a long time, and that is to do with price of vinyl, but it's also to do with quality as well. I just want to be able to buy something and know that it will just play perfectly straight away without me having to have any kind of low-level anxiety about it. It's going to be biffed in the corner, or it's going to have a crackle or paper dust on it or whatever. So that's something that, I've become aware of, and I am becoming more aware of specific pressing plants where as soon as I see it's pressed in a certain place, I'll think there could be a problem here, which I shouldn't have to think like that. So I'm sure, this is my job, but I'm sure that from younger music fans, this is also, making them a bit kind of wary about jumping in, because it's not an impulse buy. I'm not saying that music should always be an impulse buy, but there's something about music where you're thinking about the money you're going to spend, and you're really looking forward to it. It's exciting, but there shouldn't be any trepidation about that. And there is an impulse sense to it, whereas you've wandered into the shop. This isn't after a few beers going on eBay or Amazon, because more young people are going to actually bricks and mortar record shops now to be with like-minded people, the same as what I'm building here with an online community, is to talk to like-minded people. But there is a sense that you've gone in, you don't even know what you want to find. You're not really looking for anything. And then you come across something, and instead of walking out with perhaps nothing or one record or CD, you come out with 3 or 4. I think FOP used to call us 50 quid bloke. This person that just wanders in after work, had no intention of buying anything, and then comes out after spending 50 quid with about 15 CDs, which you could in FOP. So I think there has to be an element of that within music. So it mustn't be overpriced at that point. However, as I've said, vinyl is surging ahead in the first quarter of this year in the UK, which is great news. CDs are still leveling off. What do I think? I wouldn't be surprised if CDs continue to level off and actually start to climb again. I think there's going to be a steady increase in CD sales. And I don't think vinyl is going to drop back, but I think the way I see it is that physical media sales is worth billions of pounds. It's always going to be niche. They've said in this report that cassette sales are niche. The whole thing is niche if you look at the size of the streaming market. But to me, streaming is very important. I remember, I think I said before that when I started Now Spinning magazine, it was kind of like no one streamed because you were in the camp of you bought records or CDs. I think most people in Now Spinning magazine stream, but I do it to discover new stuff, to listen to stuff. And many of you must. The things that I mention on this channel, on the website, or things that get reviewed, and you think, I don't know what that is. And you go and listen to it first and see if it's your kind of thing. I think that's very important. But I also feel there is this sense of value of having the physical item, bringing you closer to the music, closer to the artist, and closer to the overall experience, really. I think, another way I could describe this, I get sent tons of stuff to listen to as streaming links, loads of stuff. And I'm very lucky, I've got a great review team, and I send stuff out to them and they listen to it and also review the albums. But if something arrives as a CD or vinyl album, it feels special before I've even known it, because I feel like I want to give this time and listen to this. And I think there is something about listen to a CD as it's meant to be, or a vinyl album, And I also think that albums now have gone back to having the vinyl as the time stamp. What I mean by that is vinyl albums were created for the world of classical music originally. So how long a symphony was, which was about 20 minutes, or split into two sides of 20 minutes. That's why a vinyl album was 12 inches across. They had to go, I think they were originally even bigger than that, but because how long a symphony lasted, or a concerto, that's how long or what a vinyl album was designed to be. So we went through the whole of the 60s and 70s and a chunk of the 80s with albums being around 30 to 40 minutes long. And then when the CD arrived, we suddenly had an extra 20 minutes, didn't we? We could go to 60 or even 70 and later on even 80. And some bands then felt they had to, or maybe they didn't, but the record labels felt you need to fill that space. So we had albums that were over 60 minutes long, and in old money, they would have been double vinyl albums, but they were just single CDs. And I feel now, if we've gone back to vinyl being the lead format, as the labels are mainly concerned with, unless it's reissues or box sets, is that has put a limit on how long albums are again. So with a lot of CDs now, most of them, if you buy a CD, the album that you buy is around 35 to 38 minutes long. And I think that's better. I don't think we're being ripped off with time. I think that's about right. There are many albums, and you must know some as well, which they were 60 minutes plus, but there was quite a few tracks in there that perhaps didn't help with the full flow of the album. I've rambled a bit here, but I always do in these music biz chatty things, don't I? So it's good news that the physical music market is growing, and so is Now Spinning magazine, which is thanks to all of you guys. So it's great to know, isn't it? There are many of us, and it's good to see that many younger viewers are also coming on board and asking questions and stuff. And there are no daft questions on this. This reminded me when I was in the record shop yesterday. and seeing like, young people like I was when I was a teenager browsing through records and stuff. And I could only afford, even then, I'm saying that they're really expensive, but, I could only buy, I was going to say one a week, but it took a while to get up to one a week. It was about 1 or 2 months, to be honest, which is probably similar to now, isn't it? But I remember it used to be about how many records have you got? And, I remember, when you start, you have 5, 10, 15 albums. I remember someone saying their older brother had nearly 40 albums. I remember thinking, wow, 40 records. Can you imagine that? You wouldn't, what would you play next if you had 40 albums? And I know there's many of the older people who are part of Now Spinning Magazine who talking thousands of CDs or albums or whatever. I think one of the great things about starting out with a record collection or a CD collection is the fact that you know every single album that you have. And not only that, you know everything that's on side 1 or on side 2 when you've got about 10 or 15 albums. And it continues for quite a while, but there is something about it. It just made me think when I was watching someone think about they were looking at a classic album. It was Led Zeppelin 2, and they were thinking, is it any good? I've heard it, but it's very good. And that's a fine question, because I think many of us who've known these albums for decades forget what it must be like to hear them for the very first time, with all the extra stuff that and what it sits up against. But yeah, those times when you think, oh yeah, second track in on side 2, I know what that is. And how many of all the stuff we buy now, of course, we have to go, I can't remember what's on that. I can't remember if I've even got it. Anyway, I have digressed, have I not? But thank you. Thanks for watching. Thank you for being here. Remember, Music Biz Chat is a monthly show that I do here on Now Spinning Magazine. Please subscribe if you can and ring that little bell. And of course, check out the podcast as well. If you become a patron or YouTube member, you will also get access to the private Facebook group for collectors from around the world and the WhatsApp group, which features many subgroups on deals and offers and all sorts of chat. It's a fantastic little environment to come into. And again, it's only accessible if you become a Patreon YouTube member. And you can also come along to our own virtual pub called the Now Spinning Arms, which meets twice a month. Remember, music is the healer and the doctor. Please take care, keep spinning those discs, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon.